Good day. Thank you for tuning into this general election candidate forum for Port of Olympia, District 1. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with the legislature. Despite our name, the League is open to both men and women of voting age. I'm Karen Tweet from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for Port District 1 are George Barnard Jr. and Joe Downing. For this forum, the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The person first asked the question will have 2 minutes to respond, followed by 1 minute from the other candidate. There will be 1 minute for closing statements at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates, beginning with Joe Downing.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for this opportunity to talk to the public and to talk to you. I'm extremely passionate about the Port of Olympia. I'm so excited to be running for the Port of Olympia in the District 1 position. Why am I excited? Because I've invested the time and energy to get to know the port, to get to know its challenges and opportunities, and how I can best fit in to solving the many problems that face not just the port, but the county. How can we work collaboratively to solve those problems? My background lends me to this position as well. I've got 20 years experience in transportation and logistics in the private industry. I've got 9 years working for the Department of Financial Institutions as a senior financial examiner, working on consumer protection. So, plus I'm a very good collaborator, working with other groups. I've already met with various city council members, various members of county government. I'm ready to hit the ground running for your port. Some of the issues that folks have told me about as I've doorbelled over 2,000 doors so far is that they want food system development to help small farmers, to help the whole county in as we bring food to our tables from the small farms. That's one thing. Secondly, I'm in favor of the fuel dock. That's part of the good tourism and good environmental protection, having a fuel dock. Most importantly, it's important to correct some of the mistakes from the past, and one of those is we have not successfully been able to have steady income from the marine shipping terminal. So I plan with my leadership to help turn around that situation and really get that shipping terminal moving again. So I appreciate your support in November, and I look forward to talking with you over the next few minutes.
Thank you, Joe. George?
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. And I likewise would like to thank the League for providing this opportunity for us to come to you and visit with you and share our perspectives on the Port of Olympia. My personal background is I've had previous experience as a county commissioner, some 16 years at the courthouse, so I have a good grounding in local government. I'm just completing my second term as a port commissioner, and I'm proud to say that the last 4 years, 2011, 12, 13, and 14, were the highest in the port's history in revenue produced. So it's a fact that the port is a government, but it's also a business, and we have to roll with the roller coaster of our economy as a result of the glut of fuel oil in the country from various sources. That's created a glut, and the cost of fuel is down. It helps you, the consumer, but it definitely affects the rest of us. So I think the last 4 years at the port have been very successful, and we've had some challenges. That's true. And I believe I'm up to those challenges. And I look forward to being innovative in the next 4 years to find solutions to the problems facing us. And I feel like I have the ability likewise to collaborate with all the jurisdictions because I've done it in the past, with the county, with the cities, with state government, with the legislature, with the various associations and all the interest groups that exist in our fine county. So I'm looking forward to one more term to complete some of the chores that I set about in 2011. I'm looking forward to getting that job done, and I'm excited about my opportunities, and I look forward to working once again with all the jurisdictions to succeed at the port. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Our first question goes to you, George, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond, and then Joe, you'll have a minute to respond to the same question. George, what is your position on the Deschutes River estuary and why?
Well, so you mean on Capitol Lake or just creating an estuary? Recreating the estuary, is that?
However you want to interpret it.
Well, I think that's probably going to happen in the next, over the next 20 years because the advocacy groups that are advocating for an estuary are very active and very involved. But we have a strong segment of our population in Thurston County that is, their preference is to preserve the lake. I think that before we take some action like taking out the dam to recreate the estuary, we have to do some real hard work with the state of Washington and perhaps our federal government and those involved organizations and jurisdictions, because when you take the dam out, you're going to be creating a need for a new bridge to reconnect Fifth Avenue with Deschutes Parkway. That's going to be a very expensive proposition, and nobody's talking about where the money's going to come from. The job of cleaning up Capitol Lake is the state's, and if there's going to be an estuary, I think they still have to dredge Capitol Lake because there's almost 1 million cubic yards of material that's come down the river in the last 30 or 40 years, and it'll just invade Butt Inlet and destroy the port's ability to function and cause problems for all the boating marinas, because that additional material in Butt Inlet will affect the level of the water and will cause problems for sailboats and other kinds of watercraft. So we have a lot to do, but I think we're up to the chore, but I don't think we're ready to start creating an estuary until we get our ducks in a row.
Joe?
I think I'd like to take issue with Commissioner Barner's first statement that it's a foregone conclusion that the dam will come out. I think that Port Commissioner, two things. One, needs to be responsible to his basic job, which is to maintain the marine terminal, and favoring taking the dam out would only add to the port's cost. And so, therefore, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Plus, most recently, the Corps of Engineers said that taking that dam out is a lower priority for them, and they're one of the federal agencies that would supply quite a bit of the money. So that being said, the economic realities of the port, I do favor working with the city of Olympia, the tribes, county government to come to a Capitol Lake solution. So I call it a Capitol Lake solution. I won't, I can't, what I personally want to advocate, I want to be a responsible port commissioner, but I want to join with other government entities to come up with a solution to the Capitol Lake situation. I do believe that something must change. I do believe that we need to probably, try to encourage the state to dredge the lake because those materials need to be pulled out.
Thank you. Joe, the next question comes to you for 2 minutes and then to George for 1 minute. Would you propose further development of the airport, New Market, and other South County property? If so, what? If not, why not?
I'm glad you asked that question, Karen. The majority of the port's real estate is in Tumwater. So that's a big piece. I think the 800 acres between the airport and the New Market industrial properties, that's a big piece of land, and I applaud the port for spending, close to a year studying that issue and meeting with the public. So I do favor development of that land in concert with environmental restrictions, of course. What can we do given the pocket gopher situation? What lands are developable? And also the fact that, floodplain is quite high in that area. So, that limits those possibilities. But I want to really work with the city of Tumwater over these issues. And, I've met with the mayor of Tumwater, and he also would like to see more partnership with the port over that issue. As far as the airport goes, and I've talked to people, again, as I doorbell, we'd like to find more business for the airport to make it increasingly self-sustaining. I have mentioned that I'm in favor of, working with Kenmore Air and probably bringing some limited air service back to the port. And once we open that door, then that might lead to other types of air service that we can, support at the airport. But most importantly, filling in some of those properties with Tumwater, working with Tumwater, working with the environmental restrictions. I don't favor, I know that there's some remodeling of existing buildings which would cost a lot of money. That needs to be looked at again. Is that a wise use of the port's money? But maybe there's other places that we could develop in the Tumwater properties.
George?
Thank you, Karen. I really feel like the Newmarket Industrial Campus is still a question mark. We have an active citizen group working with us. Thurston Regional Planning Council is coordinating all that activity. And I think that one of the things I've heard from the citizens and from some of the folks around the community is that we want to protect some of that land at the Tumwater Prairie for perhaps some farming and some other activities rather than just all construction. So I think the airport has been on about a 2% growth rate per year with private aircraft and corporate aircraft. And I think there's been a couple of attempts to do charters. They haven't worked out. We applied for a grant from the federal government to get commercial airlines. We didn't get the grant, so that didn't happen. But we're looking at options continuously, and the management of the port has been very involved in that whole process. So I think it's going to be a doable job.
Thank you, George. George, the next question comes to you. First, what would you expect to be your major challenges as Port Commissioner over the next 4 years?
Well, I think that the port has to look more toward the green industries for a way to diversify the activity at our port berths, trying to focus on cargo that will provide benefits to the region, whether it be industry that's fledgling or that's well established. Green industry is a desirable thing. We want to have a sustainable community, and so I think I'm going to want to focus on trying to diversify our cargo to bring some of the green industry to our shores. I think that maybe we ought to look at the agricultural industries, the small farms, the organic farmers, and try and support them, because I think we could actually export agricultural products not by cargo ship but by rail. We have a rail line that brings product to the Olympia area as well as carrying product away. So I think we should be looking to the possibility of being able to convey some of the products that we're producing to other parts of the state and the country, because we have people who produce grains and hops and barley for the microbrew, for the distilleries, and for wineries. And the berry products and the fruits that can be grown here, I think even grapes is an option with the climate change. I think we're going to have some opportunities that have not been before us before. So I'm just excited and interested in doing the investigation and seeing what it is that we can do to bring this to happen.
Joe?
Karen, I've got my doorbelling flyer here that I go door to door with, and it has 7 bullets on it of some of the things that I think are important to the port. But given my time, I'm going to synthesize it down to three things, three bullets, or three areas that are so important to the port going forward. One is the shipping. I've said we need to diversify the cargo in order to prevent against the economic downturns. The reason why we diversify the shipping is because the marine terminal is the cash cow, if you will, of the entire port. So we want to maintain that revenue so the dollars are left over for economic development that then creates jobs for our people in the county. Secondly, we really need to be partnering with groups and government entities over, climate change and what to do, to minimize the carbon footprint of the port and really be a leader in the environmental movement. And finally, food system development. I was the first one to get on board with that a good 5 months ago. And food system development to help small farmers bring their produce to market. And that's the third one. So thank you.
Thank you. Joe, the next question comes to you first. Do you support an increased port tax levy on citizens of Thurston County? Why or why not?
I do not support an increased port tax levy. Do not. I don't see a need for it right now. As a candidate for port commissioner, I promise you I'll get in there and study the issues, work with the Economic Development Director, Mike Reed, and others, work with the Marine Shipping Terminal Director, Len Foucher, and try to figure out, what is, and of course Jeff Smith, the Finance Director, and come up with the proper equation for financial health for the port. So that's my position on the taxes. I mean, I believe that people want the taxes spent on environmental remediation, paying off the bonds of the port. I think those are two important activities. I'm going to get in there and strive for the port to cover its operating costs and to cover its depreciation so that it doesn't need to feel the need to increase tax revenue, tax burden on the port. I want to point out that the port is one of the lowest taxable items on your annual tax bill, so that I think that it's coming from a good place. And I do support, tax revenues. 72 out of 75 port districts do tax for their activities, where it is a municipal corporation after all. So I do support the present level, but I certainly don't have plans for it to increase.
Okay. Thank you. George?
Okay, thank you. The Board of Commissioners has not raised the tax levy, the tax rate at all. We've kept it steady for the last 8 years. There has been some increase in the millage, which has caused a small increase in the taxes generated because of the way the county and the state designs their tax system. So the Board of Commissioners has maintained a flat millage rate and a tax rate for the time that I've been here. And I don't have any interest in raising the tax rate. I'd like to see about trying to reduce it, to reduce the tax burden even more. As Joe said, we're one of the very lowest of the 17 taxing districts, next to the bottom of the list. It ends up being 1.5 cents per thousand, somewhere around $45 to $49 on a $200,000 house. That's not a lot to pay for what they get from the port. So I don't intend or want to change that tax rate.
Thank you. George, you touched on this already. Would you be in favor of increased railroad traffic to the port? Why or why not?
Well, there's two kinds of railroad traffic. One of the things I'd like to work on in the future, in the next 4 years, would be the establishment of a trolley between the farmers market and the City of Tumwater's old Olympia brewery that's looking to be converted to a new facility with perhaps distilleries, with some craft breweries, and maybe even a winery, which would be a tourist draw. So that rail line that runs from the port to goes through the City of Tumwater and by the old brewery would be an important opportunity that the community has told me they really like the idea of having a trolley. Rail traffic is something that we have to be careful about because the rail lines cross the main thoroughfares in downtown Olympia. As we've hauled the cargo that's been coming out of the port, the sand that's been going to the east, to the Bakken oil fields. We try and run those trains at night because the train can only go about 10 miles an hour because of the instability of the rail cars. And so the track is not new, it's old, and so we have to be careful. So I think we should try and protect the existing infrastructure we have and perhaps talk with UP and BN to see if they might be interested in investing some of their resources in upgrading that track to make it healthier and stronger, and then we'd be able to be sure about transporting all kinds of cargo. Because if we go for larger and heavier cargo with our new heavy lift crane, we're going to have to be sure that it's not going to be endangering the rail track that's there. So I think we'll have to see what kind of cargo we get and then look at how we can factor the rail traffic.
Thank you. Joe.
I'm glad Commissioner Barner mentioned that he'd like to see, I think he said that he'd like to see increase in rail activity because in the strategic plan for 2025, one of the 9 components is increased rail activity, at the marine terminal by 25%. So that's a good strategic plan. I'm not sure I agree with all the strategic plan items, but I think that's a good one. But it kind of misses the major point, which is the economic vitality of the port. Again, people want to see a vital port, a healthy port. So whether we move and I actually do favor moving more of the cargo in by rail. There's every transportation mode has its impact on the environment, and trains have one of the least impact because they're so efficient at moving large volumes of material. So I like the idea of more rail traffic, but first and foremost, we need to diversify the cargo for economic health, and then hopefully move more of that cargo in and out by trains rather than trucks.
Thank you. Joe, the final question comes to you first. Should the port be responsible for repair of road damage in Olympia caused by logging trucks?
Okay, Karen, that ties right in with the last question, right in with it. So thank you for that opportunity to segue into talking about the trucks. As I said, rail traffic is preferable. I like what Commissioner Barner said. At nighttime, you move the railroad cars in and out at night when they're least obvious to the public. I know that I put a plug in here for Fuji's restaurant on the corner there, where I watch the log trucks over my lunch hour when I meet with folks and see those. So I really have an idea of the impact of those log trucks. It could be 60 to 80, maybe even 100 trucks per day when they're loading a ship. But I do know that back in the early 2000s that they reinforced Plum Street just exactly for that reason, that they expected a lot of trucks on that road. So I do feel like the port is playing its part in supporting the infrastructure. It's a community thing because the port also puts in roads in other areas, and so I think they make that up. But basically, make up any kind of damage. Basically, though, I do favor diversifying the cargo and moving more of that material by rail as opposed to trucks in and out of Olympia, just because it's because of that visibility. Does that answer your question? Since I've got a little time left.
Yeah. So George.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Well, should the port be responsible for paying for the damage to the roads? If we are causing damage to the roads, of course we ought to be responsible. I think we have a very robust trucking industry in this county, and we have to be aware that it isn't just the port's trucks that are causing wear and tear on the road system. Tractor trailers, delivery trucks, all kinds of freight carriers. There's going to be a lot of traffic that's going to come to the port, and if we are creating damages, then we should be stepping up to the mark and being prepared to pay for that damage. We have to probably hire some contractors to make a determination on what the damage would be, and perhaps do some of the sampling of the traffic with the road. I forget what those little things are called. They put them across the road to measure the truck traffic and the amount of weight on the road. So we'll have to look at that.
Thank you, candidates. it's now time for your closing statements. You have 1 minute. George, you go first.
Okay, thank you. And again, thanks to the League of Women Voters for providing this opportunity for us to come and visit with you. I see that there's a number of things that I'd like to do, one of which is to work on the Port Strategic Plan, because we want to be able to set goals that will give us economic and environmental success, and we can do that. I want to continue my practice of transparency to the citizens and continue my practice of responsiveness to the public interest. I'd also like to say that I want to explore development of agriculture in Thurston County, and I'm interested in the success of all of our small farmers. The port has an interest in seeing the farmers market continue to flourish and to grow, and I want to be part of that effort to ensure that they'll stay healthy and happy and robust. So I'm looking forward to the next term.
Thank you, George. Joe?
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. It's great to be here, and it's great to have a chance to talk to the public. I'd also like to thank my opponent for his years of public service. I know I appreciate it. And I'm going to say that it's time for change at the port. It's time to bring in fresh ideas, a new vision, time to rectify some of the mistakes of the past. And I'm committed in my first 2 years to having all citizens of Thurston County feel like the port is a great entity, they know what it does, they support its mission, they get excited about it. I've got the right background for this position with my years of private industry and my years of state service. It's just the right blend. Plus, I've done the work on the Port of Olympia Advisory Committee, reaching out to port staff and understanding the issues. I'm very committed to the port. I'm very committed to the 5 business units of the port. So I appreciate your support. Let's win this together. I look forward to your votes in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of the forum. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, League of Women Voter and TCTV for making this forum possible. Viewers out there, we hope that when you vote in the general election on November 3rd, that this information will help you make an informed decision about your candidates. Thank you and good day.